Feel good?
That was an excellent clap.
You feel good about that?
And you know it.
I do know. I'm a really good clapper.
You are? Uh-huh. Have a lot of experience with the clap, do you?
I do.
Welcome to the Rowdy. Yes. Welcome to the Rowdy.com Big Three. Sitting alongside Buzz Cutler, I'm Bass Masters. We're talking NASCAR in the off-season. Buck Fever out today.
Speaking of the off-season.
And tomorrow. But he's got a good reason.
He does have a good reason.
And we have 3 big issues to talk about.
Well, we have 3 issues.
You don't think they're big?
I don't want to set the bar
big
too
anymore.
I don't want to set the bar too high.
Okay.
I'd rather
3 issues of some magnitude.
Under promise and overachieve.
All right. Well, let's hear issue number 1.
Well, issue number 1 is what's happening over at Penske Racing. Of course, the captain announced, was it yesterday, that
we got a guy.
Brad Keselowski's new crew chief will be Jay Guy. Not a terribly inspiring pick, if you ask me.
Do you think his angel is a centerfold?
I think it's Jay Giles.
You know.
What struck me is that they have settled a deal with Keselowski's crew chief before Kurt Busch's. I find that a little curious.
I don't find it curious, and here's why.
Please tell.
Because I think they're going after Steve Addington. And I think that's a little more complicated of a deal to put together, just given Addington's achievement, what he's probably looking for in this next contract as far as tenure and security, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, something in that. I think he probably is going to want more than a couple years, and maybe Penske doesn't want to give him more than a couple years. So I think that deal is just more complicated to work out. If you go to Furniture Row and you get a Jay Guy who's been working his whole life for this opportunity, it's going to be an easier deal to work out. Yeah,
you may be right. Of course, the other place that Steve Addington is being rumored to go is the number 19 of Elliott Sadler. If you're Steve Addington, I got to think, okay, here's Kurt Busch, who eats crew chiefs for breakfast, and here's, what's his face? Elliott Sadler, who's one of the nicest guys in the garage. You probably have a better chance.
And I'll tell you why.
You better have a better chance of winning with Kurt Busch.
A better chance of winning?
But you have less stress with Elliott Sadler.
Don't underestimate the level of competitiveness that these guys in the Cup Series have. If you're Steve Addington, it may have been hard to work with Kyle Busch, but you had a chance to win some races, and that's what it's all about. And I think that's what he's looking for in his next deal, and there aren't that many places to go and get that. The 2 car is the obvious choice.
Okay. Now, I went out on a limb yesterday, December 1st, and I predicted my 2010 champion. I'm the first guy to do so.
Right.
And you can go read my blog at rowdy.com about that. But
I know who you picked.
Yeah. Well, don't tell him. Make him go read the blog.
Okay.
One of the more respected guys in the media center is your friend and mine, Dustin Long.
Yes.
And he came out with his list of 12 chasers for 2010.
Okay.
Obviously, there are some obvious names, but here are some of the guys he put in there that didn't make it this year.
Okay.
Matt Kenseth and Kyle Busch.
Understandable.
Okay. David Rudiman and Jeff Burton.
Okay, so he thinks Rudiman's going to take a step forward, and he thinks Jeff Burton and the RCR team have found something.
So the names that he didn't include, Brian Vickers.
Okay.
Casey Kane.
Yep.
No Clint Boyer. No Kevin Harvick. No Greg Biffle. No Junior.
Okay. No Junior is interesting. That says I don't think those guys are going to turn it around.
Well, not that much. I mean, they got to go miles to get back to the chase.
I agree with you. It's just the thing that makes you question that is, hey, they're at Hendrick Motorsports, so doesn't that give them a better opportunity to turn it around? But he's saying no. He's saying he's seen enough. Biffle, he's saying Kenseth in, Biffle out.
He is. And
So,
okay.
Okay.
Of the RCR cars, though, he picked Jeff Burton as the guy to make it. I'm not sure that I wouldn't put Clint Boyer in there instead of Jeff Burton.
I understand, except look what Jeff Burton did in the last 2 races. He got Todd Berrier, and I think Dustin's saying there's some chemistry there that he thinks, number 1, RCR's found something. Number 2, Berrier and Burton is going to be a great combination. I can see why he would say
Now, he put Kurt Busch in at 11th. Now, don't you have to put a little bit of a question mark beside Kurt Busch's name, not knowing who his crew chief's going to be?
I think you do. I think you do. Given what was going on there this year, especially in the chase and how he performed in the chase, I think putting your faith in Kurt Busch's driving ability, still probably a pretty good call.
Mark Martin he has in a second, meaning that he thinks he's going to achieve...
Where else would you put Mark Martin?
Well,
honestly,
I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to maintain the same pace in 2010 he did in 2009.
Doesn't have to maintain the same pace to get in the chase. But I agree, maybe second's a little high. Vickers would be maybe next year's Reagan. Hopefully not as precipitous a fall, but you're saying a guy that showed, last year Reagan showed this promise and everyone had him taking another step. But that proved to be fool's gold in his case. Maybe in Vickers' case, Dustin feels like it's just too tenuous, and, you know, given that RCR may be coming on, given that maybe Matt Kenseth and Roush Fenway, you don't expect them to have another down year, maybe that's why he feels Vickers will slip out.
Here's the reason I might disagree with Dustin, is because the Red Bull team has consistently taken a step each and every year. There has been no backsliding. They have continued to progress since they've come into the series. And yes, Vickers disappeared during the chase, but remember what he did in order to get into the chase. And yes, he lost some of that momentum, but he's going to be that much more experienced. His team is going to have another year under their belt. I'm not sure that I would put him in the same category as Reagan. He's been around longer than David Reagan as well.
I agree.
But obviously, Dustin Long thinks David Rudiman has also been taking incremental steps each and every season, and that's going to pay off for him.
Those guys, I think, are going to have the resources team-wise to take the next step. So you got to remember, each step gets successively harder. So you can't just extrapolate and say, well, he went from 25th to 20th, so he'll go from 20th to 15th, so he'll go from 15th to 10th. It's not that easy.
Let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, yes, because this is getting long.
But
it's just chock full of information.
You know what it's getting? It's getting Dustin long.
Nice.
Issue number 3.
It's better than Dustin Hoffman.
I don't know. It depends on the context.
I love that song. What's the Styx song?
Better than Dustin Hoffman?
All we are is Dustin Hoffman.
I think it's Kansas or America.
Oh, maybe it's Kansas. It's definitely not America.
I think I'll edit this reference out. There's a blog I've come across lately called 36 Races. It's at blogspot.com, and basically he crunches stats, and he has the Flopper Award, which is, I guess, the worst driver to start every single race. This year goes to Paul Menard, the only driver without a top 10 to have started every race. The worst starting average among people who have run all 36, fewest lead lap finishes, fewest points. We've talked a lot about, is Jimmy Johnson bad for NASCAR? And I think both you and I say no, absolutely not. My question is somebody like Paul Menard, who's consistently mediocre yet has a ready-made sponsor, is he bad for NASCAR?
I'm going to say no. And the reason why is someone has to suck. Someone has to be last. Someone has to be last just the way someone has to be first. And, you know, I don't think the fact that he's last versus some other guy is really material to the health of the sport. Now, would it be nice if you make the contention that this guy maybe has stuck around a little bit longer than he would have otherwise because he's got sponsorship? Well, yeah, that's the way it works in racing a lot these days. I mean, I think there's as an overall pattern to say, hey, maybe we're not bringing the young talent in as quickly because we got to keep guys around because they've already got connections and they've got sponsors. Well, now maybe I think you've got a case. But Paul Menard specifically, nah.
Look, I have no problem with nepotism. We have all probably benefited from it at one point in our lives. But I'm only okay with nepotism in as far as you still can perform regardless of how you get your opportunity, right? If he gets his opportunity because his daddy has money, good on him. But what is he doing with that opportunity? Nothing. And that's the problem I have.
Running all races, running all 36 races.
Sports should be a meritocracy. And he has proven that he doesn't belong in the car, yet he is continuing to get the ride because of his daddy's money and, as you said, perhaps denying somebody else an opportunity. That's where I start to have a problem with it. I don't care how he gets his opportunity. More power to him. But he's squandering the opportunity, or at least denying somebody else an opportunity because of his familial connections.
Breakout season next year. I'm on your side, Paul.
All right. You and Canadian Speed.
Yes. And that has been your Rowdy.com Big Three. Rather lengthy, but...
well, it's Dustin Long's fault.
Still fun. For Buzz Cutler, I'm Bassmasters. We will see you next time on the Rowdy.com Big Three.
Rowdy.com. Built by race fans, for race fans.